Hey, and welcome back to the channel. This is WGK's Public Safety Images, and today I'm gonna address a question that I do get asked by folks is, do I process my photos or am I just taking the JPEGs right out of the camera? The short answer is yes, I do process photos. So I want to talk about the software I use and why I use it, and then some of the things I typically do to my photos. So without any further ado, let's talk about processing photos.
Battalion 2, engines, 35, 40, 34, and 27, ladder 40, and safety 1, house fire, 3312 Ashley Keith Drive, on Charlie.
Welcome to WGK Public Safety Images. I am a public safety photographer in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and this is my channel, and I use it to post response videos. I also post videos that are all about different departments, companies, equipment, things like that. And then I also post Q&A videos where I try and answer questions that I frequently get as a public safety photographer. I would just ask that you like and subscribe, but otherwise, let's get on to the video. Okay, so I started making this video a little while ago where I wanted to talk about the photo software I used to do sort of the batch processing and organizing of the images I collect. And what I found out is, as I started talking about them, it turned into a little bit of a rant. And so I've decided to let me switch this around and let me put the rant right up front. So I use Capture One to import and to batch process my photos. There's a lot of programs out there. Probably one of the most popular is going to be the Adobe products, Lightroom or Photoshop, and those are slightly different, and I'll talk about those a little later on. But those products are great. In fact, I love Adobe's stuff. I think it works really well. My problem with it, and where I always run off track on this, is those are now subscription-based softwares. And I'm not a fan of subscription-based software. And again, it's not that I don't mind spending the money. I spend a lot of money on photography. That's not the issue. I just find that subscription-based software is a disincentive for the software companies. They don't need to work as hard to make improvements to software to keep you there because they've already got you sort of on the hook. In the old days, if I went and I bought Photoshop 2.0, you paid that one-time subscription and you could use it forever. It wasn't a problem. Adobe would come out with new versions, 3.0, 4.0, and if it had enough improvements or greater functionality, I'm more than happy to pay the price to upgrade to that new software. If it maybe had improvements that I wasn't concerned with or didn't need, I didn't have to buy it. And that was kind of nice. With the subscription base, they come out with new versions now, but like I said, there's no great incentive for them to radically improve or fix or correct any of the issues with their software. They've already got that steady stream of income, and I know that's important for the manufacturers. I just think you don't see the great jumps in technology or improvement in the software that you used to see in the old days. You're just sort of stuck using what they got. And like I said, there's no real incentive for them, even if there is an issue with their software, for them to fix it. And that's kind of what drives me nuts. So when I was looking at software, again, I like Lightroom. I think Photoshop is amazing. I like Premiere Pro for editing videos. Just wasn't happy about the cost, and they're not inexpensive. They're not terrible, but they're not inexpensive. And I wasn't sure I was getting what I really wanted or what I really needed for my money. So I looked at one-time license software. Again, I'm okay with paying for it. Just want to make sure I'm getting what I paid for, and that it's a wise investment, sort of cost-effective investment. So ultimately what I ended up going with was Capture One. I use Capture One as the batch processing software. how I import my images, and then I can go through and do some basic editing. With all that said, it is my understanding that Capture One is now moving towards a subscription-based software program, and I may rethink what I'm doing and change it again, only because I have such a disdain for this concept of how to sell your software. But that's probably a personal hang up with me. If you're happy paying the subscription, that's fine. If they go subscription, I might look at some others. And again, there's lots of great editing programs out there, batch processing programs out there. They all have advantages and disadvantages. Most of them have kind of a learning curve, but once you get the hang of them, they're pretty straightforward. So just wanted to get that out of the way, so when people say, well, why don't you use Photoshop? It drives me nuts that they've moved to this subscription-based system, and I don't see the continuous significant improvement that I'd like to see when I'm paying that kind of money. I'm more than happy to pay $200-300 for a one-time license, for a product that I like and I use. So that's where I am today. So I wanted to get that little rant out of the way. Now we can go on and we can talk about. Actually, before we go on, let me add in my other new rant. And people will say, hey, Photoshop, now they've got that AI, where you can change your, put a sailboat next to the mountain or whatever. Not interested. Don't need it. I'm sure that's an important functionality for some folks. I'm a photographer. I'm out there with my camera. There are things I want to change, but I don't want to change the general composition of my photograph. If I did, I wouldn't have taken that photograph and I'd have photographed it some other way. I find the artificial intelligence fill disingenuous and not really appropriate for photography. And again, I know that's me. Other people may love it and may love that function. But again, this is where everyone seems to be going, and it's not something I want. And so paying that subscription for Photoshop starts to become counterproductive when I'm not using the features that they're pushing. And that's back to my original point, is the upgrades aren't upgrades that I'm interested in. Go out, take the pictures you like. If you want to use generative AI and change the whole thing, go ahead. It's not what I'm there for. It's not what I'm trying to capture. And it's just functionality that I don't think I need. So let me get those two rants out of the way. So AI, subscription-based software. Other than that, I'm happy. You get my point. So when we talk about photo processing software, what we're talking about is, what you want to do to your images as they come out of the camera. And if you look back at some of my old videos when I talk about Fujifilm, one of the reasons I bought Fujifilm is because they have all the Fuji simulations, film simulations in there, where that can all be done internally, and that's pretty cool. If you like those simulations, a lot of them tend to mirror actual Fujifilm old 35mm film stock, and that's good, I guess, but it's not really for me. It turned out I don't want my pictures looking like I took them in the 1980s. I want them to be as clear, as sharp, and as vibrant and as accurately colored as they can be today. And so I didn't need the film stocks. Now with Fujifilm cameras, you can set up your own settings so that you're capturing the image in your camera as a raw file, and then the camera can turn it into a JPEG. One of the problems I had with it was, I believe it's the clarity setting. It's either the clarity or the sharpness. But if you try and increase that in camera, you'll find it really slows down your camera. Normally you click the shutter, it takes the picture, you're ready for the next one. Once you start changing some of those settings, there's a buffering time where it's got to write to the card, and the sharpness and the clarity really impacts that for Fujifilm. So what I found really worked best for me, because I'll admit I'm I'm kind of really into the sharpness and the clarity of my photos, and they need to be really extra tack sharp. I found that if I just capture the raw images, import them into a software, there I can edit the sharpness and the clarity and the exposure and all those things separately in a much more efficient, time-efficient fashion, if you will. So shortly after getting the Fujifilm equipment, I moved towards just shooting raw images. I don't capture JPEGs on my card. Don't need them, don't want them. Just capture the raws, import them into my software, and then I can make them look the way that I want them to. So once I figured that out, the question is, all right, what kind of software should I be getting? And that's where I got down to, Lightroom versus Capture One, and there's other batch processing software out there, and I ultimately went with Capture One. The other important part, or the other important aspect of the photo processing software I use is, if you're new to this, wanted to sort of clarify, there's kind of a distinction out there, and probably the best example is when people say, hey, what's the difference between Adobe's Lightroom and Adobe's Photoshop? And they really are two different programs that do two different things. Photoshop is, it's an amazing program for editing and manipulating, and everyone knows what you can do with Photoshop, right? It's become it's a lexicon in the language now, right? Oh, yeah, that's clearly a photoshopped image, things like that. Photoshop is amazing when it comes to that. So you've taken a picture and there's someone standing in the background, or there's a telephone pole or wires running through that you want to take out. Photoshop is phenomenal for doing that. Lightroom is a little bit different. It's kind of a batch processing software. And that's what Capture One is that I'm using. And that is really designed to bring in a bunch of images where you can do sort of the same consistent editing on them. If you're a wedding photographer, or you're like me, you're out there photographing fire scenes, or you're out at a station and you're photographing their apparatus. I may take 100 pictures of the truck. Once I get all those images into my camera, or rather into my computer, they're all going to take sort of the same changes, and that's what Lightroom and those photo processing softwares tend to do really well. Okay, so all that out of the way, I use Capture One as my organizing software, and again, I think it does that really well. And same thing, Lightroom, they'll do it. Capture One is set up so that you can work either in catalogs or sessions. I do all my work in sessions. And so what a session is, if I go out tomorrow and I go to 3 different stations, I can make each individual shoot a session. So I come back, I take my card, I put it in my card reader, I go into the computer, I can open Capture One and say, all right, first session I went to Charlotte Fire Station 1. It'll let me pick out the images I want, and it'll download those RAWs, and they'll all stay in an organized folder setup. So I can download those onto my internal hard drive from my computer. I can then go to do, Charlotte Station 2, however I want to do that. Download them all, and then go back and I can work on them. The nice thing is, once I'm finished with those, I can move those out. I can upload them to the cloud. Anything in that Capture One folder, it's sort of self-contained, and that's really nice. So after I've processed it and I produce the images I want, typically I'm loading them onto either my OneDrive, save them in the cloud, or sometimes I have some Sony SSD, solid state drives. I'll put them on there. I can always plug those into my computer, go back into them, open them in Capture One. All the info's there, all the RAWs are there. Depending on how I've created the images and where I've loaded them, sometimes they'll be there. And that's the other nice feature of Capture One, is it has the recipes for exporting images. And I touched on that a little earlier, but it's nice. You can take an image and say, all right, this is going to be I just need a JPEG that's going to be suitable for the internet, right? I can down the resolution, I can go to 100 DPI. I can set the length and the height by pixel, something that Instagram wants, and then create a JPEG, and it'll export that file, and it'll export it where I want it, which is also nice. So for my Instagram stuff, I export it out to my OneDrive because I can get to my OneDrive from my phone. So now I want to upload a picture I took yesterday of a scene or something. I can just do it all on my phone, which is kind of nice. Instagram on the web is kind of clunky and doesn't work real well. So I can do that. But like I said, if I have, I want to have some higher quality images. I shoot stuff for, Fire News, and I have to upload some stuff to them. Those are different qualities, right? They have greater resolutions. They have minimum requirements, what they want to see the photos in. That's just another film recipe. So I can take the same picture and say, all right, now I want you to, Capture One, I want you to export it as this JPEG. It's greater resolution. It's going to be a larger file, and put it in this folder. And then Capture One also creates a default output folder in that little folder structure. And so I've got like preview settings, medium quality, high quality. So if I know a department wants some pictures of a particular piece of apparatus, I can say, all right, here's 10 photos, export these high quality images, and they'll go into that little session folder in the output into a specific folder that I've named. So it keeps everything organized, and that's really nice. So when someone comes back to me and says, hey, 6 months ago you were at such and such fire station 10 and you took these photos, can I get a copy? Yeah, I know where they are. Like I said, even if I've offloaded them off my computer's internal drive, because of the way the sessions are set up in Capture One, I just have to open it on a solid state drive, or if it's in the cloud, and all the information's there, all the photos are there, any of the changes. And I have set up a system I use with Capture One, and I'll talk about that in another video, about when I go through and what I do with them, how I save them, and then how I designate them. I use the color rating, I use the star rating, I use all of those. So it makes it pretty easy to go back and find stuff later on. So Capture One has become my go-to for batch processing, for importing, and for storing. And again, that's really important. Even when I started out, a lot of times I would take 100 pictures and I'd get them back and I'd go, I only want this one picture, and I don't want to save all, take up all this drive space. Delete all the rest out, and yeah, you can almost guarantee that once they're gone and deleted, you'll find you needed them again. So I keep all my RAWs and just keep them in sessions. So when someone says, hey, back in 2022, you were here in June and you photographed a bunch of stuff, do you still have those? The answer is yes, and I can get them. They're all there. And like I said, I've upgraded my processing standards, if you will, and sometimes I go back and go, ooh, I'm not sure that was really what I was going for. I just revert all the images back to their raw state, and I can do them under my current processing flow and create the images there. So I'm really happy with Capture One. Like I said, it's good for doing the batch processing. It's good for organizing. Those sessions are great. You just, you don't even have to be in Capture One. You can go into Explorer on your computer and drag and drop that session folder. I label all my session folders in such a way so that I can find them. They all start with the date and then some description of what it is. I have found that the better the description, the easier it is to help. I used to do it where we would say, Charlotte Engine 1. Well, then I have a bunch of folders that say Charlotte Engine 1. And so now I get a little more specific, and they'll say, on this date, Charlotte Engine 1, on the scene of a fire alarm on East Trade Street. Helps me when I go back and look at them and find them and remember what each of those is. But like I said, once I've created those sessions, just drag and drop those folders where you want them. So you want to put them on a external hard drive for long-term storage. That all works really easy. So been really happy with Capture One. And like I said, it allows me to do some batch processing, and I'll walk through that. But again, that's probably going to be another video. So hopefully that helps. Gives you an idea why I use Capture One. Yes, I like Lightroom. Yes, I like Photoshop. No, I'm not interested in artificial intelligence making my photos look whatever. And I've given you my little rant on subscription-based software, and I apologize for that. But hopefully you found this interesting. If you have any questions, you want to know more about using Capture One, feel free to leave that in the comments. Let me know. I'll be more than glad to help you out. Otherwise, if you like this, if you thought it was interesting or entertaining, you like watching people rant, give it the thumbs up. I would ask that you subscribe. And otherwise, we'll just see you again in the next video. Thanks. Bye.